Hello everyone, thank you for taking time out this afternoon. It's snowing here. In fact, it's been weird. It's sort of lain on the floor from last night and it's now lots of flurries, so who knows what it's going to do, but it's nice to be warm inside and thinking about the growing season. So I don't know if any of you are going to be doing a grow along with me, but I certainly have got my seed potatoes here ready. I don't know if you're familiar, and I don't know whether you have all actually received them yet, because I know there's been a delay on potatoes being sent if you do the mail order, but seed potatoes are effectively potatoes actually, but they've been heat treated. So they're disease resistant for you to sow them knowing that they'll grow and they won't be putting any diseases into your soil, or you will get a good crop. They're not going to rot off and get all sorts of things that potatoes can get. So open up your little net bag. I'm going to push down this screen a little bit so you can actually see what I'm doing. Can everybody see that? So you open up your little net bag, and interestingly, I only grow earlies. So these are Jersey Royals. They're not called Jersey Royals in this country. We're not allowed to use the name unless we're in Jersey. But the variety is called International Kidney. And International Kidney is the variety that they grow on Jersey. So they're just very particular about the name Jersey Royal. So anyway, so I always love those potatoes because they're very early. So we're eating these in June. But this method I'm going to show you is for any potato, whether it's an early, a second early, a main crop, or a late. It doesn't actually matter. You treat them all in exactly the same way. Okay, so check your label and see what you've bought. I actually don't bother with main crop potatoes anymore, purely because they never store very well with me, and I can't see the point of growing lots of potatoes, taking up a lot of space, and then I can't grow anything else. So this is what they look like. So they're actually classified as second earlies, International Kidney, but I call them earlies because they are very early to us, and it's an early crop in June. So you get them out of your bag, and they actually come in all different shapes and sizes. That's got a funny shape. That's quite a big one. You can get little ones. And if you look carefully, just this one, for example, if you examine them, you can see that they've got little eyes. Can everybody see that? So basically the eyes are the places where they're going to send up green shoots. And the eyes are all over. There's a couple, some just here. But the key to do with the potato is to actually look, and where you've got more eyes on one area, you would think about positioning this potato upright with the eyes towards the light, looking upwards, because what you want to do is you want to do something called chitting, C-H-I-T-T-I-N-G. And chitting means encouraging these seed potatoes to produce green shoots. That's all it is. So it's shooting, really. And what I do is I always save, I think some of you who've been on webinars before know I love reusing things, but I need a good egg box. And I use egg boxes, put that down there, to position my potatoes very nicely, facing upwards with the eyes at the top. Can everybody see that? There. And so I get each one and I examine it, looking for the eyes. That's got more little cluster of them at the top. And I just put them each in the egg carton. There, is that better? And the reason you do that is because you need them to be positioned upright. So there's another one that's got quite a few at the top. They're quite obvious, some of them. And you do this all the way along. And it just means that these seed potatoes, that's even got a shoot growing already, they're not touching each other, and you're allowing air to circulate all around. If I were to put all these seed potatoes in a pot like this, I could reuse a little plastic fruit. I mean, I could do that, but look, for them to stand up, they're actually rubbing and touching each other. And that's really not good, because if a little bit of moisture got in between the potatoes, would get damp, and you can already imagine what would happen. They'd rub, and then diseases would harbour, pests would get in, and it would ruin the chances of you being able to plant that potato out and getting a really good crop. So like with everything, you want to give it the very best chance, don't you, to start off in life. So you position them all along here. You can use as many, you don't have to use a long egg box, but I've just got that one, it's easier. And now you can see that some, I'll show you a comparison. So this is a massive one, and this is a small one. So it seems a bit odd, doesn't it, that they're actually going to produce little nice new, small new potatoes, but believe it or not, they do. But if I get a really large one like this, I actually cut them in half. I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, old-fashioned gardeners would always cut their chitted potatoes in half just before they're going to plant them out in about April time outside into the ground. But you can actually do it now if you prefer. I prefer doing it now, but just because I quite like getting my jobs done all in one go. And I'm going to show you what we do. So let me just move that to one side. Little board here. Get one here. Right, that's probably quite a good example to show you. So let's use this one. So if you're going to cut them in half, you would cut them lengthways in half, because I've got all my little eyes which are going to send shoots at the top. So if I cut it that way, I wouldn't have many here and the chances are it wouldn't shoot. So I'm going to cut lengthways so that I'm getting shoots on either side. Does that make sense? So let's get a little board of my knife and I'm going to cut them straight down here and end up with 2 potatoes. And then what you should do is you should dry off the moisture and the wet of the potato, because you don't want anything damp sitting around. So I would get some kitchen towel and dry them off. If you've got some wood ash, we actually have plenty because we're burning lots of fires, or sulfur that you can buy in powder form, you could actually put that on and just damp it all off, but just make sure they're dry. And then all you would do with the 2 halves is pop them again upright in your, bring that back so you can see, in your egg box again. Oh, that one's so big he fell out, so he'll need to be cut as well. So does that make sense? So it just means that I need a different egg box here because some of them are so big they're even touching in the egg box. It just means that when you plant your potatoes out, by cutting a potato in half, that's better, you're actually going to be getting more potatoes in your crop, just slightly smaller. And actually, that's what I prefer, because new potatoes in my mind, there's a little tiny one there, so he won't need to be cut. And that's what I prefer. I don't want huge potatoes that size, my Jersey Royals. So I always cut them. But by all means, you don't have to. You can chit them just like this in your egg box now and put them either in a light, on a light windowsill, anywhere, doesn't have to be heated, could be a spare bedroom, but just somewhere where there's an awful lot of natural daylight, okay? And then just ignore them and they will just do their own thing and they will send shoots up towards the light, and that's the process of chitting. But you don't have to cut them now. I like doing it, getting jobs done. If you don't want to cut them now and you let them all chit away like this, and you've got lots and lots of green shoots coming out all over, then when all signs of frost have gone, which is the time you'll plant your potatoes out, you can cut them in exactly the same way I've just shown you, put some wood ash or dry them off for a couple of days. It's called curing. So you would just leave them for a couple of days. And that's when then you can actually plant them out in their halves at the same time, but always leave it a couple of days so you're not planting something that's got an open cut side. It's sort of common sense, but that's the thing. So that's the best thing to do with potatoes. And then I'll just quickly talk you through the process of when you would plant them out. So I've just said that it's when all signs of frost have gone. The reason for that is because potatoes are really tender, and these lovely shoots that are going to grow up get attacked very easily by the frost. So if a late frost were to come and you had planted out your potatoes, yes, they're all below ground. You plant them about 8 inches deep, but the frost would attack the green shoots and the leaves, and it literally comes in at the top and goes straight the way down and will destroy your whole crop. So it's really, really key not to plant your potatoes out. Doesn't matter whether they're early, main crop or late. Do not plant them out until frost, all signs of frost is gone. And when you plant them out, I plant them out at about a foot apart and 8 inches deep. If that's what I do with my early potatoes. If you're planting main crop, they're obviously bigger potatoes and need more space. So I would allow about 1.5 foot between each potato. And it's kind of rule of thumb that you plant them in rows. And the reason you do that is because as soon as you've planted your seed potato, it's sitting below ground, and it will very quickly, with those shoots, push up, you do something called earthing up, which is effectively covering all the green shoots that you have seen. So all those lovely shoots that you've grown and nurtured in your egg boxes, you actually need to cover with soil. It's a process called earthing up, and this earthing up protects those green shoots and protects the potatoes. If there was going to be a stray late frost or a cold snap, you would have given them a better chance of being protected and ensuring yourself of a good crop. So you plant them in rows, you plant them about a foot apart, the earlies, 1.5 foot the main, and you earth them up, and you keep earthing them up. It's not something you do just once. You actually do it as soon as you see another green shoot poking up through that soil. Go out there, cover it up. It can be with your hands, with a fork, it doesn't matter, just cover them up. And then eventually you'll get to the stage where you'll be thinking, well, that Julia Parker, she's completely bonkers. I'm covering my green shoots up every day. And that's when you give up. Okay, so there comes a time where actually nature has just taken over and you can do no more. And that's fine. You've given it the best chance. And then you'll need to know when your potatoes are ready, because obviously it's not something we can dig around and have a look and see what's going on. So the rule of thumb is when your potato plants are actually flowering, that tells you that your crop is ready below ground. So keep checking, wait for them to be in full flower. I have made the mistake of thinking, I'm sure that looks like a flower, I'm sure they're ready. And I've dug them up, and some of them are actually the size of my fingernail, which is actually not brilliant. And then often I might just think, oh, I can wing it, I can put them back in and they'll grow again, and they don't, it's silly. So actually wait for them to be in full flower and then harvest your crop. And the only other thing I need to tell you about that is when you harvest your crop, do not use a spade. I know it's tempting and I know you'll think to dig them up, but use a garden fork, because when you're digging around, potatoes, they grow from this one seed potato in great long sort of fronds of root, and there'll be potatoes everywhere in this whole mass, this sort of whole foot area you've left. And if you put your spade straight in, you could actually cut them right in two and you're ruining your potatoes. But if you use a fork, then the fork, the worst it's going to do is kind of maybe poke, you might end up with one on the end of a prong, you know, you'd poke one and it would come up, but you haven't actually sliced the whole thing in half and damaged it. So forkable potatoes are edible, but ones that have been damaged by a spade are really not. So that's another thing to bear in mind. And if you're going to grow these international kidney ones, which I will say they are my favorite first early or second earlies, they are my favorite, they're really tasty. If you're going to grow those, they'll be ready middle of June, end of June. So it's a really good thing to do, but look out for them. I mean, I ordered mine online from a company called DT Brown, but you can get them in most garden centres. I'm just not sure if you've all got garden centres open at the moment, but I mean, you have, yeah. But I mean, online is good as well. And I think mine took 2 weeks to arrive. And the other thing is it's quite difficult to work out how many potatoes you need. So they give you a weight when you're ordering them. Oh, I've lost my label here, but I order very few. So I basically ordered one small bag. You can see the size of my bag. And that actually is plenty for us because I don't want to use up too much space. And also, you know, with new potatoes, you have to harvest them when they're in flower. It's not something you can leave in the ground and come back to later. So once they're ready, and you need to eat them relatively soon. A main crop potato you can lift and store, but the first earlies and the salad potatoes are slightly different. So just bear that in mind. And don't do what a friend of mine has done, and she's ordered something like 10 kilos of seed potatoes and now doesn't know what to do with them. So just beware. So yes, so that's potatoes. The other thing I was going to say is that you don't have to grow them in the ground if you don't want to. So you can grow seed potatoes, or any potato actually, in a grow sack. So it's a bit like a Hessian sack. You can grow them in Hessian sacks, but somewhere like Marshall's online sells special potato grow sacks, and you can actually plant 5 of these in each sack. So you'd still get a good crop, because one of these will produce 15 to 20 new potatoes. So if you think about that, you could have, if you're short on space, you could have a couple of grow sacks You could start them off in the greenhouse and then just put them outside. They're quite easy. They come with handles. So actually, they're really useful things. I used them last year. I had 2 lots on the go and I was surprised. They were great. The key to them in sacks is they need to be watered regularly. So obviously if they're outside, it's a bit easier because there's more moisture in the ground and any rain that comes. But obviously in a sack, you would have to do all the watering yourself. So just don't let them dry out if that's what you're doing. And you would only need to use multi-purpose compost. You don't need to be clever. Or homemade compost is really good for potatoes. So yeah, so I think they're a really good thing to grow, but I think they're very, what's the word I'm trying to think of? They just use up a lot of space is what I'm trying to say. So if you're new to potato growing and vegetable gardening, don't fill your whole garden with potatoes. But on saying that, they put nitrogen into the soil, so they're very good for other crops to come in after them. And the good thing about early potatoes is that they're gone by the beginning of July. So you've actually got that whole bed, which is then ready for something else. I mean, you could actually put some late broad beans straight from seed into that bed and they would take off and you'd have some lovely broad beans end of August. So, you know, you could just think about that and use your space wisely. I don't have masses of beds here. I don't know if any of you have been on courses with me, but I don't have huge beds, but I make them work quite hard for me. I grow a lot of different varieties and just not that much of all of them. And that seems to work well. So yeah, so that's potatoes.